Known as the #1 Western swing electric steel guitar player, Bob Dunn was a top-flight musician who serves as the model for all steel guitar players after him in Western swing and other subgenres of country music that feature the instrument. Although he may not have been the very first to use the amplified electric guitar, he may be credited with being the father of the electric steel guitar in country music. He's known for his jazz-tinged single-string ad-libs in the pioneering 1930s Western swing outfit, Milton Brown and his Musical Brownies. Born into poverty in either the rural farm town of Braggs, Oklahoma, just south of Muskogee, or in Fort Gibson, which is just 12 miles north of Braggs, Bob Dunn, like many musicians of the early 20th century, found his ticket out of those dire circumstances by turning to music and excelling in it. Bob's first musical experiences came by accompanying his father, Silas B. Dunn, on fiddle breakdowns in the old-time country tradition. One of 4 brothers born by Iva Pruitt Dunn, Bob was the only one who aspired to be a musician. As a child, he heard a group of musicians traveling through and became entranced by their use of the steel guitar. He eventually came into possession of one and began taking lessons through correspondence with a Hawaiian native, Walter Kolomoku, who lived in Oklahoma City. Bob also came of age during the 1920s when phonograph recordings and radio made learning about new styles and players more convenient. Quitting school in the 8th grade, Bob was soon playing professionally in his early teens during the early to mid-1920s. The first known bands Bob played with were the Panhandle Cowboys and Indians and California Curly and his Cowboy Band. By 1930, Bob was working in Paul Perkins' band at KFKB in Milford, Kansas. The band played for a quack doctor, J.R. Brinkley, famous for selling goat gland to cure all kinds of ailments. Bob worked and traveled with several Western bands, vaudeville tours, and jazz bands. During the early 1930s, Bob began playing trombone and recorded a few sides with Jimmy Davis. With its slide action, the brass instrument's musical elements found their way into Bob's steel guitar playing technique. Many of his famous ad-libs derived from moving the slide bar on the steel up and down one string, similar to the way in which a trombone works with its slide. Also, about the same time, while Dunn was in New York working wherever he could find jobs, he was on Coney Island and saw an African-American man playing a slide guitar that had been rigged with a homemade pickup and became inspired to learn more about the instrument. Many people were experimenting with electric guitars in the early to mid-1930s. Bob Dunn created his own version of the electric steel guitar when he began playing with Milton Brown and his Musical Brownies. A vaudeville tour landed Bob in Fort Worth in 1934, then the epicenter of the Western swing movement, where he went to the studios of KTAT to visit the Brownies, who featured a Hawaiian steel number in each one of their broadcasts. After demonstrating his style, Dunn became a Musical Brownie and told Milton Brown what he wanted to do with the instrument. Brown procured an amplifier and Dunn attached a homemade pickup, perhaps modeled after the one he'd seen in Coney Island, onto a big guitar he'd bought in Mexico. Dunn began experimenting with the instrument in order to replicate the sounds of brass instruments played in a jazz style. This technique gave him his unique tone and attack. Dunn's addition to the Musical Brownies substantiated the strong foundation of the first Western swing group to gain prominence in the Southwest, even before Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys. In 1935, the group's popularity led to their first recording sessions for Decca in Chicago. At these sessions, Dunn recorded "Taking Off," his signature tune and country music's first important steel guitar number. Dunn also recorded important solos on "Cheesy Breeze," "You're Tired of Me," and others during the sessions, which had wide-ranging implications by virtue of the records being sold by the thousands as a result of the Brownies' fame. Dunn's sound became emulated throughout the Southwest and had influence on everyone from other steel players like Leon McAuliffe to Texas-born but Oklahoma-raised jazz guitarist Charlie Christian, both of whom would have certainly heard Dunn at least on radio. After Milton Brown's untimely death in 1936, Dunn recorded for Vocalion Records in a Western swing band led by Roy Newman of Dallas, played with another ex-Brownie, Cliff Bruner, and the Texas Wanderers, who recorded for Decca, and after leaving Bruner, Dunn formed a short-lived group, Bob Dunn's Vagabonds, recorded a solid session for Decca wherein Dunn even sang on one song, "When Night Falls." Soon after the sessions, Dunn broke up the Vagabonds and traveled extensively throughout the Southwest and Southeast to include a stop in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry. Dunn returned to Houston, reformed the Vagabonds, and traveled to Dallas where he recorded with Bill Mounts on sessions including Jimmy Weibel, a 19-year-old electric guitarist who played with Bob Wills and Spade Cooley before gaining prominent jazz status with Benny Goodman, and who said Dunn was a significant early influence on his playing. After serving 3 years in the Navy in World War II, Dunn returned to Houston, where he successfully completed his high school equivalency requirements, enrolled in the Southern College of Fine Arts, where he eventually earned a master's degree in music. He continued playing in the Houston area and formed the Blue Serenaders, a pop and jazz band, in which he played more trombone than steel guitar. Dunn sat in on a few more recordings in 1949-1950, but by the fall of '50, Dunn had opened a music store and focused primarily on his business and teaching. In 1995, Kevin Coffey wrote Dunn's life story in the Journal of Country Music. Subsequently, Dunn's legacy is being recognized more and more for his innovation and contributions to country music, to include his induction into the Steel Guitar Hall of Fame for being, quote, the first steel guitarist to introduce jazz licks into country and western music. On the larger scale of Oklahoma music history, Dunn's ability to combine elements of jazz, blues, and country is a testament to the multiple influences to which he was exposed as a youth in the realm of the state's multicultural brew of people and their wide-ranging musical identities and influences. In 2013, Dunn was posthumously recognized with the Eldon Shamblin Session Musician Award, as Bob Dunn was inducted into the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame.